Figure 7.5, Scale Drawings. A scale drawing is a proportional 2D drawing of an object. A scale model is a proportional 3D model of an object. The scale. The measurements in scale drawings and models are proportional to the measurements of the actual object. The scale gives the ratio that compares the measurements of the drawing or model with the actual measurements. And it says drawing distance over actual distance. The drawing always goes on top. Actual always goes on bottom. So, for instance, they have 1 inch over 10 miles. You might also write it with a colon, so 1 inch colon 10 miles. Again, drawing came first, actual came second. So it says, what is the actual distance between Cadillac and Detroit? And if you measured with the centimeter ruler in your book, you would find out that from Cadillac to Detroit is 3.5 centimeters. So what we need to do is come up with a proportion. So the first thing we need to look for is a key. And if you look right here on the top right of the map, it says 1 centimeter over 50 miles. So that's the first part of our fraction that we're going to use. 1 centimeter over 50 miles. That means every centimeter that you measure, it's really 50 miles in real life. And in real life, you're not going to travel 1 centimeter. So we know that the top is the model and the bottom is the actual. Now, we really did measure this. And we said that it was 3.5 centimeters. Well, that's not how far it is in real life. So that would be our model. So we're going to put 3.5 centimeters on top of our other fraction. And we don't know how far it is, so we're going to write x on the bottom. So now in order to solve this, we are simply going to cross multiply 50 times 3.5. So 5 times 5 is 25. Carry my 2. 5 times 3 is 15 plus 2 is 17. I have one number after the decimal. So I know it is 175 miles from Cadillac to Detroit. Now the next example says, what is the actual distance between Traverse City and Marquette? Well, we measured it again, and it is 3 centimeters. So we are going to set this up the exact same way that we set the other one up. Again, we're going to have model over the actual. And we're going to use the key, which is 1 centimeter over 50 miles. Now we just measured it, and we said that it was 3 centimeters. So now we got to figure out how far it is actually. So cross multiply again. 50 times 3 is 150 miles. So from Traverse City to Marquette, it is 150 miles. The next question says, the liquid outer core of Earth is 2,300 kilometers thick. A scale model of the layers of the Earth has a scale of 1 inch, 500 kilometers. How thick is the liquid outer core of the model? So the key word they said is how thick is it of the model. So that means we're missing the model. So again, we're going to set it up, model over actual, and they give us our scale, which is 1 inch over 500 kilometers. So 1 inch over 500 kilometers. Then they tell us that the liquid outer core of the Earth is 2,300 kilometers. So that's what our actual is. That's what it really is, 2,300 kilometers. So we want to know what our model is. So now we are going to cross multiply again, except this time we're going to multiply 1 times 2,300, which we know is 2,300. Then we're going to divide that by 500. Well, they both have 2 zeros in it, so I'm going to cross that off, make it easier. 5 goes into 23 4 times, which is 20. Bring down my 3, have it add a decimal and add a 0. 5 goes into 30 6 times, so I get 4.6. Now I have a B and a D that have 4.6. Well, we're talking about the model, and our model unit was inches, so we know it's going to be 4.6 inches, which is B. So the next definition that you need to know is scale factor. Scale factor is simply a scale without units. next example says a scale model of the Sergeant Floyd Monument is 10 inches tall. The actual monument is 10 feet tall. What is the scale of the model? So we have, if you remember, we have model over actual. So in the model, we know it is simply 10 inches. In real life, we know it's 100 feet. And they want to know what the scale is. So we simply just have to reduce this. We know 10 goes into both 10 and 100. 10 goes into 10 one time. 10 goes into 100 10 times. So we know our scale is simply going to be 1 inch over 10 feet. Now it says, what is the scale factor of the model? Scale factor means it has no units. What happens is the units are going to be the exact same thing, so they will end up canceling out. So what we need to do is we need to change that 10 feet into inches. So what we currently have is 1 inch over 10 feet. What we need to do is make sure inches is on bottom. Well, in order to figure that out, we got to know how many inches are in a foot. And if you recall, we know that there are 12 inches in a foot. So we're going to convert 10 feet to inches. So how are we going to do that? We're going to multiply 10 times 12. Well, we know that 10 times 12 is 120 inches. And our 1 is going to stay the same. So our scale factor is simply 1 over 120. So the next thing we're going to talk about is finding an actual perimeter and area. The scale drawing of a computer chip helps you see the individual components on the chip. Find the perimeter and area of the computer chip in the scale drawing. Alright, so in the scale drawing, it is measured to be 4 centimeters by 4 centimeters. So in order to find the perimeter, all we have to simply do is add 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4. And we know that is 16 centimeters. To find our area, we know that's length times width. So our length is 4, our width is 4, so 4 times 4 equals 16 centimeters squared. That's for our scale drawing. Now, for the actual perimeter and area of the computer chip, we have to convert it. Alright, so if you look on the actual problem itself, it says 1 centimeter is equal to 2 millimeters. So there's our first part of our proportion. And if you remember, the top is the model and the bottom's the actual. Well, in our model, what did we measure? We measured it to be 4 centimeters. So we need to know how many millimeters that is. So again, we are going to simply multiply 2 times 4, which is 8. Divide that by 1, we still get 8. So we know that it's really 8 millimeters long. And because it's a square, we know it's going to be 8 millimeters wide. So now, in order to find the perimeter, we have to add 8 plus 8 plus 8 plus 8, or 8 times 4, which gives me 32 millimeters. And for the area, we're simply going to do 8 times 8, which gives me 64 millimeters squared.